Hi, welcome to the Kids Club meeting for the July 2016 Kids Club meeting. I'm Brian Hibbs.
I'm Ben Hibbs.
That's right. We're the co-hosts here. We're here for King of Kazoo, which is a great book by Norm. Norm, how do you pronounce your last name?
It's pronounced Feuti.
Feuti. Okay, I was thinking it was Feuti. So Feuti.
No one ever gets it right.
Yeah, no, that's why I figured it was safer to ask than not to. And we've got a light crowd this morning, but you know, school started again here in San Francisco, so it doesn't actually surprise me that we've got as few people. Are you guys all in public school or private school? Has your guys' school started? Yes.
My school hasn't because we finished really late.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
My kids start next week.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy that it starts. It started. It's a whole week already. It's in San Francisco. It's nuts. That's way too early. Way too early. So yeah. So I thought this was a great book. You guys like the book? Yeah. 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 Funny, cute, frenetic. Yeah. You're a really good cartoonist, Norm. I love your. It's funny. It's. Yeah. I like it. I like it a lot. So let's. I actually want to start with something else, though. I want to start with you're the first guy that we've had for these meetings who comes out of newspaper strips.
Oh, really? Okay.
Doing strips first rather than comics. Most of the people that we have are just full-on comics people. So there's a real difference, I think, between strips, which are 4 panels. And a comic, which is a much longer sustained narrative. Can you maybe talk about that a little bit? Some of the differences and maybe the challenges?
Yeah, sure. I guess coming from a background where I have to write comic strips, you really have to develop characters and storylines over a very long period of time. And it can be challenging. So it was really refreshing for me to be able to do a graphic novel where I can tell a whole story just in one shot.
Yeah, it strikes me that one of the challenges with a cartoon strip is that you have to kind of keep restating your premise almost every day, right?
Exactly. There's a lot of exposition involved.
Yeah.
But it has taught me to be. You have to be concise in your wording because it sort of taught me how to keep the reader informed in the most way possible.
Was it challenging to break any habits there when you're doing a longer form thing?
Yeah, well, in some ways, because newspapers, they're printed so small, so you tend to get into the forced bad habit of drawing very small pictures and not being able to expand your art very much. So it was great to be able to do that with a graphic novel, but I often found myself falling into the habit of drawing the same panel a lot. So.
When you plot out a strip, are you plotting out like a week at a time, like a whole sequence, or you just do it day by day?
Yeah, if it's a storyline, I'll generally, I know what the beginning is and the end is, and then I'll just fill in the blanks in between.
Okay, so with a graphic novel, how do you approach it?
Well, pretty much the same way. It's just that there's a big place in between.
Right.
And so I kind of know where the story begins. I know where the story ends. I kind of know what's going to happen in the middle. And I know what I want to say with the story. And then it's just the challenge of filling in everything in between.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm just going to say I really like the art style. It's very unique compared to all the other stuff we've seen so far.
Oh, thank you.
That wasn't really a question.
Well, I'm
okay. supposed to keep the dialogue going. What was I going to say? So, because we've talked to many different cartoonists, and everybody has a different way of approaching their story. Some people literally draw the entire thing, you know, all 100, 200 pages, whatever, and then write the entire thing, and then ink the entire thing, and other people just kind of do a page at a time, and just it comes as it comes. Where are you on that scale? How much are you, you know, kind of figuring it out in layouts and plotting and planning ahead of time?
I figured out the story just in words at first. Like I just sort of on paper describe what's going to happen in each section of the book. And then I write the dialogue, page by page, you know, sorting it out by panel, with an idea in my head of what the action's going to look like. And then I rough sketch out the panel layouts. And then when that's done and it's gone through the editorial process, then I sit down and draw the tight pencils, and then I'll ink over it. I actually have some of what the rough sketches look like.
Oh, we'd love to see that.
For the book. I don't know how well you can see this, but these are sort of what the roughs look like. And this is actual size. I mean, they're just sort of you know, rough what the layout's going to be.
Those are really detailed for roughs.
People keep telling me.
Yeah.
If I sketched a little looser, I'd probably get things done a lot faster. And you can see some of the editorial notes where they said maybe I should move this panel here or here.
Right.
So.
Nice. Very nice. What was I going to say there? So those are pretty detailed. How long does it take you to do a page of roughs? Are you doing, you know, multiple pages a day? Are you a page a day?
It doesn't take long to actually sketch them. It's more the sitting down, trying to figure out how I want to lay the panels out. You know, that can, depending on the day, how inspired I am. It could take me a whole day to do one page, or I might do 8 pages in one day.
Right. We've got a 200-page book here, more or less. How long did it take you, would you say, from start to finish?
Well, the art itself, from sketching to drawing to inking to coloring, took 8 months, I guess.
Wow.
And there was probably an equal amount of time writing the story, you know, getting feedback from my editor.
Where did the characters come from? Like the genesis of the story.
It's funny. I imagine these characters as comic strip characters. I had an idea to make Speaking of Kazoo sorry, I'm having sound problems. A comic strip that would be an adventure comic. Pretty much how the book turned out, except it would be serialized in installments. I wrote a few samples. This was years ago. I wrote a few samples, and then I thought better of it. I said, well, let me run this by my editor at the newspaper syndicate, just to get some feedback on it. And unfortunately, the newspapers today, it's not something that would be really marketable. My editor liked the idea, but he's like, well, you know, newspapers aren't looking for comics that are geared towards kids, and they don't want something that relies on continuity. So it's sort of a non-starter. And then it was maybe a couple of years later when I got an email from an editor at Scholastic who liked some of my comic strip work and asked if I'd ever thought of doing a graphic novel. And as it just so happens, I had. So I had this idea on the back burner when he called. And that's sort of how it all came about. One big story that I could put these characters in, and here you go.
Where did the notion of the characters come in the first place?
Just the idea of the characters. I don't know. I sort of wanted to create old style characters, but kind of give them not modern day sensibilities, but a more modern take on it. As far as the writing of the story, I know they're in a sort of medieval world, but I just wanted to kind of an update to that sort of classic golden age kids comic book characters.
Yeah. Do you have any animation background? Because some of your art really makes me think of kind of classic animation, squash and stretch, frenetic.
No, I don't have any personal animation background, but I grew up watching, little Warner Brothers cartoons and have a real affinity for that. And I never went to art school, so I'm self-taught. And
wow.
Most of that comes from when I was a kid. I would draw pictures of Bugs Bunny or Daffy Duck or Roger Rabbit or Garfield or Calvin and Hobbes, and that's sort of where my visual vocabulary came from. So
that's fascinating that you're self-taught, because I would not have guessed that. I would not have guessed that from looking at your art at all. Oh, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, I was about to, actually not. But what program do you use? Or do you use a program, or do you paint by hand?
This book was all done by hand. I did the coloring in Photoshop. I bought a Cintiq a couple of years ago, and since the book has been done, I've started doing my comic strips in the Manga Studio. So if there's ever another King of Kazoo book, it will probably be drawn on the Cintiq. I actually have some of the art here too. If you want to just an idea of the size that the originals are actually drawn. So nice. I'll do 2 pages on one spread, and then I scanned it in, and then cleaned it up, colored it.
Mm-hmm. So where did you I guess what led you to doing strips in the first place? Since you have no formal training, that's an interesting, because most people that we talk to went to art school or things like that. How did you get into cartooning in the first place?
I think as a kid I was always just a little too self-conscious and unsure of myself, and I never thought I'd be good enough. So I never tried to go to art school. But I grew up reading comic strips like Garfield, Calvin and Hobbes, County, The Far Side, all the big strips in the '80s, and that was sort of a fantasy in the back of my head. I could do anything. I'd want to draw comic strips. So I ended up working just regular retail jobs for many years. And when my daughter was born in 2001, my wife had a better job than me at the time, and we wanted one of us to be a stay-at-home parent. We didn't want to do daycare. So, she had the better job, she had the better insurance, so I stayed home and just worked part-time retail, because it just made more sense. And my wife encouraged me, said, now that you're at home, why don't you try that dream you've always had? You like drawing, you have a good sense of humor. Why don't you give it a shot? So I drew a comic strip based on my retail experiences called Retail. And submitted it to newspapers, and they liked the idea, and I got syndicated in 2006. And I've been doing a lot of other things since then.
Great. That's great. You don't usually hear about someone coming in with their first idea and getting syndicated right out the gate. That's
well, it was a little more extended than that. My first idea was a retail comic, and it didn't get picked up right away. And I spent a few years with other ideas. But an editor convinced me to go back to the retail idea, which is what I eventually got syndicated.
Okay. So we also we're streaming this over the internet, as you know, and we have at least one viewer. It looks like we have one. Only Parker and Jack are watching, but Parker and Jack have questions.
Okay.
Parker and Jack, their first question is, why is Torque silent? Now that may be something that you're going to reveal in a later book, but
I hope to. My son's first question when reading the book is, why is there a piece of his ear missing, and why is he silent? And I like to add interest to characters in that way, and I have sort of a vague idea of what might have happened to him in the past, and I'm hoping to use that in another story sometime in the future. So unfortunately, I can't say.
Very good. No, that makes sense. Are you planning on doing more King Kazoo books?
I would love to do it. This was sort of a one-book deal, but it's gotten really nice reviews. So we're talking about maybe doing some more. So hopefully we'll see.
Yeah, no, we've liked it quite a bit.
Would you rather do another King Kazoo book or like a different series?
I don't. I have ideas for more King of Kazoo books. But I have other ideas too. I guess it's. I tend to focus on the idea I have and not think too far. But yeah, I would absolutely do another kind of story, maybe science fiction or real world characters.
Still aimed at the 9 to 12 kind of range, or?
I've really, and this is the first book I've written specifically for kids, and I did really enjoy it. So, I would like to write more kids books.
Cool. No, I think it's great. I think it's great. Do any of you guys have questions? Thoughts, comments, anything?
I was gonna ask if I was gonna do another one, but that question was taken.
Right.
I can ask again if you want.
Yeah, ask again.
Well, I already know the answer.
Maybe I'll give you a different answer.
Well, I can restate the question because Parker and Jack asked this. If there's a sequel, what will it be about? I know, but you gotta ask the question as it's asked.
I have a sequel in mind. Has everybody read the book? Who's here, I assume? I don't want to give a spoiler, but it would involve the automaton that comes to life at the end, and it would kind of involve his journey and trying to get him to fit into the world.
Oh, cool. Oh, very cool.
A little brother to read this book.
Yeah.
But he's not reading it. He's not reading anything. No, but he's 9.
Okay. Right.
I'm not keeping specific track of how old he is.
Right.
I'm fairly certain he's 9 though.
And he's not reading at all?
Well, he reads things, but like he reads the chapter books, but like he's reading Harry Potter right now.
Right.
So I'm trying to get him to read this
Yeah.
because I just think this would be a book that he liked.
Yeah.
Would like. So I'm still working.
My son is the same way, especially with graphic novels. He'll look through the pictures cover to cover first, and then he'll go back and read the story.
Yeah. Anything else? You got nothing to say at all? Well, you said you loved the book. Yeah, but all right.
Questions they had were answered.
Oh God.
I know.
No, I'm asking all the good questions. Then is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Maybe I should talk less. All right. All right. So how about this then? Where did the notion of having an automobile in a medieval world come from? Having technology in a medieval world, because that's an idea that I don't think happens particularly often.
Well, I wanted there to be both, and I wanted there to be a little bit of conflict between which is better, magic or science. And I also wanted to put things in the book that I always liked as a kid growing up, and I always liked old-time automobiles, antique cars. There was a movie. This is going to date me. It's called The Great Race. Jack Lemmon was one of the played the villain in it. I forget who the star was. But it was set in the turn of the last century, and these old-time cars, and that's always stuck in my head. And I've always liked the thought of doing something with an old-fashioned automobile.
Yeah, I was very struck by that. The other thing that really struck me was I love Bing's hair. I could look at Bing's hair like a lot. Was it fun or frustrating? You know, to have to draw those curls.
A friend of mine asked, how soon did you regret the decision to make her hair curly spirals? And I said, almost immediately, when you have to draw it hundreds of times. My wife has curly hair, and that's where the idea came from, and I like the graphic look of it as well.
Yeah. What?
I forgot what
You forgot. Hair, Bing. All right. How about while Ben's thinking about what he was going to ask, had you always, from the beginning of the story, had a female protagonist in Bing?
Yes. Well, the three main characters, the King, Bing, and Torque, were pretty much the same, even back when I envisioned it as a and I kind of envisioned the King as sort of vain and bombastic, and his daughter is a little more level-headed, if not a tiny bit impulsive. And then Torque was just sort of this put-upon inventor who, unfortunately, couldn't say what he was thinking most of the time. And I usually, when I write. Sorry, I don't mean to.
No, go ahead. No, please.
When I write, I tend to think of the characters first, and what they are like, and how they interact, and then I'll kind of build a story around them.
Yeah, I really liked how self-possessed she was, how confident she was. I just thought that she was a pretty good role model myself. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, so so since you said you were like kind of inspired by cartoons for the whole like how they move around, was there any particular artist or something that influenced the way that you draw, or like the art style particularly?
I like the old Warner Brother cartoons, and a lot of people had a hand in drawing those. But I like a lot of cartoons from that era. Like Tex Avery sticks out of my mind as a really talented guy. But mostly I grew up on comic strips in the 80s, so people like Bill Watterson and Berkeley Griffin is sort of the art I always looked up to. I don't know how influenced it looks, but that's sort of the artist that I always kind of gravitated toward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I would actually say that I see more animation here than I do, say, a Rethard or a Watterson.
Yeah, I definitely tried to give these characters sort of a retro 1930s comic strip comic cartoon look.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, also part of it is that there's a lot of expression on the faces. You know, the eyes are always wide, or like just big reactions. And in a lot of comic strips, I don't think that you get big reaction. You know.
Yeah, comic strips. I mean, it depends on which comic strip you're talking about, I guess, but they tend to rely on the dialogue and the jokes to move them along. I mean, unfortunately, it's the space that's allotted to them nowadays that makes it very hard to do anything expressive with your characters.
Yeah.
It's refreshing to be able to do a comic book like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Where did the idea for the Croakers come from? Go ahead, ask that. Sorry.
Is that the same question?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. I wanted them to meet up with sort of these weird creatures in the middle of the story that they had to. Yeah, I wanted them to get in this jam and have to get out of it, and I wanted the creatures to be scary, not scary, but different looking. And frogs were just sort of the first thing that popped into my head. So I went with it.
Yes. Yes, Chris can ask questions.
Okay. So I love that that push and pull between magic and science that you just mentioned, and there's a great line about science being magic for the rest of us or something.
Oh, right. Thanks.
But how? So as you're weaving in these ideas of like the jar of wind and the snow, I guess everyone's seen it, the snow and so on. Do you kind of come up with those ideas and then figure out how you'll work them into the plot, or do you kind of get to a point in the story where you're like, okay, now we've got dynamite and we're going to have to do something about it, and then you come up with either the science or the magic to solve the problem?
Wow, that's a really good question. A lot of times I don't think about my process so much, so yeah, I'll come up with an idea like the wind jar, and I'll say, oh, this would be a cool magic device. And then as I'm writing it, I think later on in the story, she could use this to blow the potion out of Cloth's hand. And the dynamite. I mean, I knew they were going to bring that to use in the mouth. But then, as I was writing the story, I had the idea where, the Croakers find all this dynamite in their car and automatically assume that and that ramps up that situation. So it's a little bit of both. Some of it's planned, and some of it comes to me as I write the story.
Mm-hmm. We have another question from Parker. Good Lord, we have 3 more questions from Parker and Jack. You guys are prolific, Parker and Jack. I really appreciate that. So the first one is, I love that Bing has such a bond with Gypsy. Would you add more to that in a sequel? Which I suppose is a question.
Yeah, Gypsy became a big character in the book, so I would definitely continue that if there were any new books.
One thing I really liked about The King was how, in a very kind of classic children's story way, that all of the misfortune stems from his character.
Right.
and everything that goes wrong is a part of his personality, which I think is just it's just a very strong way to write and present a story. Was that conscious, or did it just work out that way?
Yeah, that was it was always intentional that the king would just be so self-involved that he would create most of his own problems. And luckily, he has a smart daughter who can get him out of it.
Yeah.
And a lot of that has to do with my own role as a father. Not to paint myself in that kind of ugly picture of me, but when your work is creative, when you're a creative person, one of the unfortunate side effects is that you tend to be in your own head a lot, and you do tend to get self-absorbed sometimes. As like, oh, I gotta promote this thing on Twitter. I gotta this editor wants to see my work. I gotta prepare this new stuff. So it's a hard balance to remember. You know, my kids growing up. They have their own things. They have their own desires, their own need to be recognized just as much as I do. So there's a little bit of my own life mixed in there too. Hopefully, I do a better job than the king.
Well, I think it's part of the kids sometimes too, right? That your parents don't necessarily think that you guys have your own lives as well, right?
Well, it's never phased out. I have my own opinions on what I want to do.
Right.
Oh, we should take him here. Hey, can I have a say on what I want to do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to appreciate you.
Well, if it's any consolation, it's hard to be a parent too.
Well, I guess that much.
Yeah. Questions, thoughts, anything?
Questions.
Oh, come on, you almost had one.
If you had a choice to do magic or science, which one would you pick?
Great question.
If I personally could cast magic or have scientific knowledge, what would I pick?
Yeah.
Oh, magic for sure.
Yeah.
It's easy. I'd much rather be Harry Potter than a lab technician. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Scientific knowledge you can learn on your own.
Right.
I mean, if you Google how to do magic, it's probably going to come up with a card game.
Right. But what about the consequences of magic? Right? Doesn't magic always have, in every piece of fiction, magic always has a consequence. And usually it's something that you can't predict. No? Just throwing it out there.
But it's harder to learn how to use magic if no one else can do it.
Yeah. I'm with you there. Let me go back to Parker and Jack. What happened to Quaff?
Why is he so bitter?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea, carrying through the theme of the book, where you're a lot of people aren't getting the recognition they think they deserve. He's sort of this guy who invented a lot of the things that the kingdom would benefit from, but was sort of forgotten and ended up living in this mountain town where nobody really remembered what he did. And that just sort of embittered him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's hard sometimes. Let me ask you guys a question in the room. Do
I mean, I like to draw my
Yeah. Do you guys ever want to do a whole story? Or are you just doodling around?
I'm just usually.
You guys ever want? The only reason I bring it up is because we have a cartoonist here. So if you have any cartooning questions, this is always the good time to ask. You know, like if you do, but you don't. Okay. I'm trying to get. It's good. You got something else?
Not as such.
Not as such. Okay. I guess then we'll go to Parker and Jack's last question here, which this is I think my favorite question they've ever asked because it's really random. Is that picture to your left an ape with a stick?
This one here?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the picture that they're asking.
It's an ape patting me on the back. Hold on, I'll. This is from a talented cartoonist friend of mine, Kieran Meehan, who lives in Glasgow. He did a contest on Facebook where he would draw a little bit of a picture and then post another picture to draw a little bit more, and then the question was what movie was he referring to, and I was the first one to guess, so he said, I get this picture from him. It's a really talented guy. He does a comic strip called Pros and Cons with King Features. He's a great guy. So yes, it's an ape patting me on the back, and he was good enough to give me a lot more hair in the picture. So.
That's great. All right. Well, let me see. What else can I ask you? I know what else I can ask you. So you said that you colored the book yourself in Photoshop.
Yes.
And that you got Photoshop to color the book. Was there a big learning curve for you in going from black and white art, because basically all strips are black and white, to doing color work?
Well, I've had Photoshop for a very long time.
Oh, okay.
My comic strips are I draw them digitally now, but I've always had to scan them in and deliver them digitally. So I do color my Sunday comics, and my daily comics are actually colored as well. This was a much bigger level of coloring than I've ever done, though.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I imagine so.
So
200 pages, that's a big project.
Not as much a learning curve.
Were you doing it as you went along, or did you do it after the book was drawn?
No, the process generally, once the inking was all done and scanned in, they have me, the publisher has you color the first 15 pages and then deliver that, so then they use that to print the galley, which is a black and white version of the book, for those who don't know. And then I've got more time to color it afterwards, because they need the galleys a lot sooner than the actual book comes out.
It's actually how Ben and I both read the book. We read it in the galley, so primarily in black and white.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which was one of the reasons I really liked the art so much. I mean, I really like your line work. I think your line work is very charming and sweet. You know, your color work is good, but I really like your line work. I really like particularly like the Croaker Swamp and the shades of green that you use in there. It's just nice and kind of gross and creepy green.
Oh, thanks.
And the way that the lights come in through the everything.
No,
The
thank
lighting's
you.
really good.
No, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was a little self-conscious about it. I've never colored anything on that scale. And coloring for newspaper comics doesn't need to be very involved, because the end result is kind of muddy. So I'm happy to hear that you like the coloring.
Yeah, no, I liked it quite a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, do you guys have any final questions? I asked everything there is to ask?
Yes.
Wow, all right.
What's your favorite color? There.
What's your favorite color? There you go. What's your favorite color? That's a good question.
I always say black because if you have a black pen, you can draw anything. You don't need any colors.
Oh, there's more. More from Parker. Oh, okay. Parker and Jack again. Who is Bing's mother?
That's an idea I have for a third book.
Oh, nice, nice. If you had your way, how many books? I mean, do you think you can do 10 books? Do you think you got 3? What do you think?
I don't know. I have ideas for 3.
Mm-hmm.
If that happened, I guess I'd have to see how I felt after the 3rd book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. How about this too? And I mean, gosh forbid that you have to make such a choice, but if you had to choose between doing strips and doing graphic novels.
I much prefer graphic novels. I know this is just my first one, but it was very fulfilling artistically. I love doing my comic strips, but I've been doing it for over 10 years now, and creating a daily strip every single day for that amount of time, it can become a grind sometimes. I hate to describe it that way because I realize how lucky I am to be able to make a living doing this, but it's just a constant renewing of that same group of characters. So I would prefer graphic novels, I guess.
Great. Well, I have to say, and I think I speak for all the kids here. I think that we really, really like King Kazoo, and we would love to see you do more of these. I think you're a great cartoonist with just a wonderful style, and
thank you so much.
Right, guys?
Yeah. Unrelated question, but do you have a favorite superhero?
Favorite superhero? I've always liked Wolverine. It's hard to pick a favorite because they're all kind of cool in their own way.
You got a Wolverine story in you? You gonna pitch one to Marvel?
No, I don't think so.
No. It's worth an ask. Worth an ask. Yeah, please.
Okay. So now would you say who has the better job, you or your wife now?
I know what she would say.
What would she say?
I mean, it's nice to be able to work at home and do something that I love. So yeah, I don't know if better is the right word, but I like what I'm doing right now.
Excellent. Well, again, Norm, thank you very much for your time today. Thank you for coming here and speaking to us, and
thanks for
doing this great book, King Kazoo, our July pick. Yeah? Round of applause. Yeah? Very good. Very good. And I just want to remind everybody that our next Kids Club meeting is crazily enough next Sunday. I'm sorry that it's two weeks back to back. It's just how it happened to work out this time. Our next book is Kid Beowulf. By Alexis, I think it's Fajardo, I believe, and Alexis is going to be here in person, so he'll be able to draw sketches for you too, and show you some stuff, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I hope we get you guys all to come, and thanks very much, and we'll see you guys next month.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Episode. All right, bye. Bye.